Are you looking to level up your author business?
Are you pounding your head against a wall, wondering what your next step should be? Then join me, Daniel Wilcox.
And me, Sacha Black, as we haul ass each week in a bid to level up.
Level up!
Come along for the ride as we delve deep into the business of writing,
Craft,
entrepreneurship,
and every level of the author journey. This is the Next Level Author podcast.
Hello, Achievers. Welcome to the Next Level Author podcast, a podcast where we hold each other to account and track our step-by-step progress as we level up our author businesses. My name's Sacha Black, and here with me every week is Daniel Wilcox.
Woo-hoo.
Hello.
Hello, how are you?
Well, I think that's quite the question at the moment because we are still in Coronagate. So tell me how you are in the context of, everything that's going on.
Generally healthy, fine. I think I've had a couple of days this week where it's been a bit heavy, and I think one thing that I have realised is that there are days where you just feel sluggish, and I think there's a certain level of anxiety that you don't really know or you're not really that aware of, and then every now and then it just kind of gets you a little bit, but in general, I mean, I don't really have too much to complain about, so I'm doing okay. How about you?
Yeah, middling to fair today, I would say. It has been quite volatile in our house, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I just mean emotionally, it's very roller coaster-ish. So some days will be absolutely fine, and then other days we're not. And again, I think it, like, without being too hippie, I do think there is a bit of a general strange atmosphere, like how the whole country is on lockdown, like it's not normal, guys. So yeah,
it's a big thing. Yeah,
it is. And it's the one thing I am struggling with is that we have a 6-year-old at home, and as much, I don't know, I don't want to be sexist, but I do think lots of the girl kids that I know will sit and entertain themselves by themselves, whereas my son is less inclined to entertain himself unless it's in front of a digital screen of some variety, which obviously I don't want to give him all of the time. So yeah, I am finding it hard to get work done, and that then has an impact on my mental health. I think I'm probably similar to a lot of writers, where I say if I don't work or write, I get very grumpy.
There's a certain level of achievement you get even just from being able to do the small tasks, and I think what this has done is made us realize the kind of stuff that we've been taking for granted. I mean, I've slammed myself into a stupid position where over the past 3 weeks I must have recorded about 9 or 10 podcast interviews for the Great Writers Share, and how they all got together I don't know, but that issue is sorted. But pretty much every writer that I've spoken to is feeling that same sort of pressure, no matter whether you've got kids, no matter what age they are, and a lot of people are just trying to be a bit kinder to themselves, but at the same time, with us, where it's our full-time job, there's still an element of we need to do shit.
Yeah,
so
and I have a launch coming.
Hard. Yes.
So okay, weekly confessional. So our last task was to be kind to ourselves in one way or another. So what did you do to be kind to yourself?
I went for a walk. I turned off my phone, I turned off everything, I went into the forest behind my house, and I went for a walk and just disconnected, because I've been so determined to log on, try and keep up with my work. I share my son between myself and his mother, so there are times where I'm very, very free and times where I'm incredibly locked down. So I allowed myself just a few minutes, probably about an hour and a half of just walking around and just doing nothing.
Sounds like bliss.
It did have a massive impact on my next day and being able to do more stuff. So it was helpful. What did you manage it? I know you did.
I know, after my confession that I'm basically a villainous bitch that doesn't ever be kind to herself. Yeah, I did. So I did go and have my bath, and it was glorious. And since then I have tried with varying degrees of success, to be kind to myself on a daily basis. And I, funnily enough, also sat in the garden. In the UK, it's been really hot during Corona Gate. The one saving grace is the heat, which we never normally get. So I sat in the garden and I outlined by hand. I love outlining by hand, and I've been throwing down some ideas. And so that's for one of my next books. So yes, I sort of managed it.
Exciting.
Okay, weekly personal updates. So what are you working on? What's going on for you? What is happening in Dan world?
So I have officially launched all of the promo to get started on my horror serial. So the plan with that is to essentially live write it through Patreon. So anyone who joins up to my Patreon will get chapters before they're anywhere near actually being compiled and released. I've had a handful of patrons come on board this week, which has been really gratifying to see. And I'm plugging away at the prequel for that before I actually get started onto the main series itself, so I can start to get some people on board, get them to a point where by the time the first book does go onto Amazon, there's a bit of backing behind it to push them to. At the same time, I'm keeping my collaboration nonfiction on simmer at the minute, just a rolling boil. And at some point I'll be collating, I sent out a questionnaire to a bunch of other authors who do collaborate, because I want to get other voices in there as well to sort of round off my experience and just give it a bit more weight. And that's in process. So once they all come back, I'll start cleaning that up and putting it into a book that is shippable. And then prep work for this podcast to actually go live, which it will be going live. I'm guessing we'll be putting this episode just out with all of the others this coming Tuesday, the day that you're listening to it, folks. And also, as mentioned, sort of just getting well ahead on the Great Writers Share by accident, but it works. I'm about 2-3 months ahead of where I should be on it now, which is nice. How about you?
Just to say, I also like to batch my interviews, so I find it very draining because you expend so much energy. You have to be, sort of on when you're recording. But I do really like knowing that I don't have to stress on a weekly basis. So yeah, I love that. Good move. So in terms of me, so I think the last time we spoke, it sort of chronologically was actually a couple of weeks ago. So I had at that point been doing the edits and ordering proofs. So I have my proof copies. I have been doing more edits, sending out advanced copies. This is for the Anatomy of Prose. And just this morning I got back, I've also written, in the meantime, the entire workbook, sent that off, had it edited, written and edited it in the last couple of weeks. God, actually, that's not bad given Corona Gate. But anyway, so I had that back this morning. So I need to accept not all of the edits and then format that and order proofs in the next week. What else? I'm working on a nonfiction collaboration book that I can't talk about at the moment. And so I have started writing that. And then I am also in the background working on launch things. So I have a download that's free with the book. So I need to finish that / start it. And then also the course. So I am aiming to, if not launch the course at the same time, at least be very close to launching it. I might talk to you about that off air, but I have some like imposter syndrome there going on that's basically resulting in me procrastinating. But yeah, on to our question of the week.
Sorry. Just before you jump onto that, just because you said something there that I think is massively important to anyone that might be listening to this, which is the fact that as you were listing stuff, you realised how much you have actually done over the past few weeks. And I think just one extra point, without slamming on about Corona, I think one extra point on that is perspective will be warped right now. So while you're constantly feeling like you're pushing against this thick wall of shit, you are making progress. Things are happening, and when you actually look at them from afar, you can see that. But I know it is hard trying to balance it all.
Why do you have to be so nice and make me see the nice things? Yeah, you're right.
I'm such a dick.
Oh, you're right though. You're right, and like looking. Like if you're talking, if I look at me now, I'm like, there's no way I'll be able to, write a workbook. I had no idea how I was going to do it, and then I just did it. And I have to say, I think one thing that Corona, like one massive positive for me personally anyway, to take out of Corona, is that I have developed an ability to laser focus when I do get silence, or not silence, but some working time. And that has massively impacted my productivity. So actually, I might not be working as many hours, but I have still got not as much work as I would have done, but I still got work done. And what does that say about what I was doing before, I suppose, is really the question. How much was I actually procrastinating, or, you know, chatting on social media or whatever? So, yeah. Anyway,
Positives.
no more procrastinating. Yeah, no more procrastinating. No more getting away without it. Okay, so the first question I asked you was about your biggest achievement, and I thought that was an important question for us to start with. However, I want to flip that on its head, and I want to know what you feel either your biggest mistake has been to date in your business, in your writing, or what you wish you'd done differently.
Okay. So I think the first thing that springs to mind is that I genre hopped. And while that's not necessarily, it depends how you look at it. It's not necessarily a bad thing. So I started off, my first novella was a horror novella, led me down this path of horror. Me and the Hawk and Cleaver guys launched The Other Stories, which is primarily horror fiction, bit of sci-fi in there, bit of thriller, but they normally center around quite dark, horrific themes. And we went down that road. And then at some point when, and this is not in any ways, it's any slight to Luke Condor, who I'm going to mention, who I wrote The Rot and a few other books with. We went down this road of writing post-apocalyptic that is influenced by horror. So it's still got horror elements, but it's more primarily into the post-apocalyptic genre. And I think at the time, and this is partly why I labeled myself under dark fiction, I think at the time I just saw it as post-apocalyptic is a type of horror. And post-apocalyptic sells better because you can get longer series, whereas in horror people die. And we're still sort of working together on a series that we're doing with that. But I think that then took me down a bit of a curve away from readers who solidly are looking for a particular genre to read. And there wasn't a lot of crossover from the horror people into the post-apocalyptic people. And we've got a healthy list for post-apocalyptic. And the books that I wrote with Michael Anderley, they're post-apocalyptic in a sense, so they kind of work. But I think probably just going off on that tangent, I learned a load of lessons on the way, and I don't regret any of it. But I think in terms of trying to hit the horror vein, that's slowed me down a bit, which is why at the minute I'm treating the books that I'm currently releasing as a bit of a soft relaunch into horror. I'm sort of starting from basics, looking at the bedrock of my mailing list, how I'm promoting myself, my author brand, separating that away as well from the Great Writers Share, the non-fiction side, because again, I was starting to mix those and market, well, not so much market, but on social media, I was promoting a lot of stuff that was one side for writers and one side for horror readers, and not always the two mix. So I'm being a lot more deliberate now about where I'm sending people, what side of me they're going to see, so that I can really curate a brand within those that is stronger and sells the books I want to sell. But yeah, I definitely think hopping off on a couple of different genres slowed me down is the wrong word. Like I say, I learned enough to get me to this point. But that's probably one thing that if I could go back, I'd probably be a bit more stringent on focusing on.
Okay, I think that's really interesting, because when I released my fiction, I released it under a different name and then immediately regretted it. So I changed it back, so I'm just under Sacha Black, but that likewise has problems because you know, I write nonfiction and a particular brand of fiction, and not the audiences aren't the same. But I think the problem I have is that I do so many other things that I can't manage another pen name, so to speak. So I am always going to have that problem, but I have no intention of having multiple pen names.
And just to be clear, I'm keeping my names will be the same across my nonfiction and my horror stuff. I have looked at the possibility of creating a different pen name, but I'm not. I know there are benefits in separating the two, but I'm not 100% sure that again, like you, I have the time to manage both, and I'm also not entirely sure that it will affect it too much if I can do it right. But it's primarily sort of my social media channels, my advertising, my mailing list, where I'm being a bit more like, you're in that camp, you sit over there.
Do you think that's it then for Apocalyptica? Did you say, or Apocalyptic?
I say apocalypsia, but I don't know if that's a word, but I just like it.
Okay. Oh, fuck it, it's a word.
Post-apocalypsia. No, I don't know. I don't think so. Like I said, at the minute, we're 2 books into a post-apocalyptic series. I do have the 3rd one that I'm chipping away at. That series is going to be a quadrilogy. And maybe at some point I'll go back to it, because I genuinely really, really love the genre. There's something miserable and bleak about it that just speaks to me. I don't know what it is, because I'm not a miserable person. I just love that kind of darker side of stuff.
No, but I think, but don't you find that though, people? Because I think you're super positive. So, like, it must be that negativity comes out in a different way. So
if I didn't write, I would be miserable.
Yeah, me too. I am horrible. I am a horrible human being when I don't write. So
yeah.
Okay, I guess it's my turn then.
Yes, please.
Okay, so I make this mistake every time I ask a question, because I'm like, I always think of, I do think about it, but I found this one really hard to answer, because I have made a lot of mistakes. So I even mentioned one. I launched under a second name and then very quickly changed my mind. So I've made publishing mistakes, like uploading the wrong file on a pre-order and then that file going live, which is huge. But I think my real answer to this is something that I get really resistant over, and that is my mailing lists. So I feel like I don't manage my mailing lists as well as I should, and in particular my fiction. So I have both autoresponders for my fiction and my non-fiction. Both of them need updating, but I really don't email my fiction readers enough. And part of that is because I haven't published a fiction book in 18 months. So it's very difficult. I, sort of spiraled a bit, I suppose, well, what can I talk about? I was meant to publish this, I don't want to send negative emails. So I spiraled a bit. Another part of it is that I need to change mailing list provider. And but I'm still with MailChimp, but I'm getting charged like, I don't know, like 60 quid a month. And actually there are providers. Jeez. Yeah, exactly. And there are providers who will do the same for less. So
MailChimp's not doing well at the minute.
No, it's not. And I am leaving them as well. I love them. I think they're fantastic, but there are providers who do the same for less. So why would I not save myself that money? Anyway, so yeah, for me, I feel like and this is very much how I have approached all my marketing, in that I'm good with the nonfiction. I email my list, okay, not in any consistent manner, but at least once a month, usually once or twice a month. But with the fiction, I can go 2 or 3 months before I email them, and I feel like some of that is resistance in me and excuses, rather than, some of it is because I struggle to think of what I can say when I've said I was going to be launching something and then I missed the launch, and then where do you go from there? So yeah, I feel like I need to ignite my mailing list management, and maybe do like a huge dump of ideas for my fiction or something. I don't know, but yeah, I definitely want to redo all my autoresponders, and I just feel like it's a mistake, because your mailing list is so precious, and I have not done as well as I could have done for my fiction, and that's the same for the fiction marketing as well. So yeah, I feel like that is my biggest mistake that I perpetuate on a regular basis.
Yeah, I think mailing lists, they can be quite a heavy burden, and I think there is that certain level of, you want to make sure that you're saying the right thing to your readers, because obviously these are the ones that are closest to you, that you have that direct contact with, the whatever percentage open up the emails. Do you think that a certain level of not emailing them or keeping on top of that is procrastination, because you feel like if you start talking to them, you're almost promising the next fiction book, which is then just another thing to worry about?
No, not really, because I've always been honest, and I thought I was releasing the book in July of last year, but you know, there was so much going on with, you know, leaving my job, but transitioning into full time. And yeah, like, I think some of it is because I look at that first book in that series and I know it's not as good as it can be anymore, which is a really big problem for me because I don't write fast enough for that not to be an issue. You know, if I was pumping out 4 or 5 books a year, it wouldn't matter because I'd already have a backlog of 20 books. So, you know, oh well, if there's one that doesn't matter, fuck it. But, you know, I'm struggling to market that series because I know it could be better. And so I think that's part of the reason I haven't finished the 3rd book, because the quality is better, but the lead in for the rest of the story isn't, if you know what I mean. So I've already decided I'm going to do a light edit on that book before I publish the 3rd book, because
that's dangerous.
It is dangerous. It is dangerous.
But it'll be worth it. I
think it will be worth. I'm not changing the story, just some of the language. You know, I've just written a book called The Anatomy of Prose, and and I'm looking at that book and I'm like, oh God, there's so many mistakes in that. And that's yeah, see, now I'm like, well, maybe I shouldn't change it. But also, I still got 2 more books in that series. And when you're not invested, and this is a complete tangent now, but when you're not, it's not that I'm not invested, but, you know, I just feel like it's not the best product that I could have. But then I published it at the time and it was a marker in time, isn't it? So I don't know. Anyway, that I think is part of the issue with the mailing list, is that.
And your next question.
No, I already have the next question. So how are we going to, so the task for the week to get us to this next level? So what are you going to do to correct your mistake? Like, that should be the task, I reckon.
So it's kind of already a work in progress. I mean, I'm rebranding a lot of my stuff. Like, one of the things I find difficult is, as a person who is fairly positive, a lot of the horror authors that I know, they brand themselves in this way in which it's all grayscale and they're all like moody and everything else. So I've started like changing my pictures to moody Dan. Feel free to check it out. It's not even moody then. It's just me having fun with a couple of Snapchat filters from Halloween. So yeah, I'm getting a lot more deliberate in how I brand myself as a horror author to try and create that intrigue. One thing that has happened over the past week or two is, for some reason, I've seen a massive upsurge in people reaching out on Instagram and Twitter and commenting on some of the work. We obviously did, this was really unexpected. We did a Poison and Prose live sesh on the Rebel Author group last week, in which we got drunk and did sprints. And from that, I've had a few people reach out as well and actually become patrons and join. I wasn't expecting that. That was quite nice.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you very much. So yeah, I think what I will do this week is I will go through my mailing list sequence, because you have reminded me as well, and I will update that, because I've created a separate sign up link to track how well the horror serial is doing specifically. So I need to actually sort out the autoresponder for that, get that up and running. And
who are you with?
I'm with MailerLite. Yeah, I can't. We are on a monthly plan because I do it through a Hawk and Cleaver account. But I'm pretty sure it's not £60 a month. But we get it's decent. I'm a big fan of the email builder in MailerLite. It's very, very intuitive, and they've got some cool features on there, so that's worth it for me. But yeah, that'll be my task, to sort out my mailing list and get to the point where that brand is there and just part of what I do for my fiction now.
Awesome.
You?
I think I'm going to do more lots of little tasks. I think I cannot fix this problem in 1 week. So I think, and I feel like I need to write this down or I'm going to forget. So I think the first thing I'm going to do is a brainstorm for ideas of things that I can send my fiction list, so that I always have a bucket that I can take from. So yeah, that's the first thing I'm going to do, is a brainstorm for my fiction list. The second thing I'm going to do is print off my email autoresponders for both fiction and non-fiction, and just go through them and make notes about where I'm going to change them. I am not necessarily going to change them this week, just because I have to do formatting and launch and stuff for the Anatomy of Prose, but I am going to print them. I will make a promise to print them and read them, and at least let that start to percolate where I want to make changes, because there's a bigger thing around, my fiction list doesn't have a bloody reader magnet. So, there are things that I need to do. So I might, I might create myself a bit of an action plan as to what I need to correct. So the first thing I'm going to do, see, I've already forgotten. What did I say I was going to do? A brainstorm.
Yes.
See y'all. Yeah, a brainstorm.
Quarantini.
Yeah, and I will print off my autoresponders and I guess like hand edit almost to say where I want to change things. Yeah, and those two things are probably the most important foundations. And then, and that's the other thing I'm going to do. There was 3. I'm going to make a point of researching the mailing list providers and deciding who I'm going to go with. I'm not going to do the changeover, but I'm going to make the decision as to who I'm going to go with this week. So 3 things for me.
Yeah. One quick question. How are you getting sign-ups without the reader magnet? Is it mostly just from people who've read the book?
So I've done, do you know who Ryan Z is?
No.
Okay, so Ryan Z runs book sweeps, and book sweeps is like you give a book away and you get subscribers. So I've done targeted campaigns and like built a couple of thousand. I did a long time ago run something on Facebook and got a couple of hundred subscribers. So I've managed to gather a couple of thousand, but none really are organic. And that's because I don't have anything to give away. And I have started writing the epilogue, but I've stalled a bit because I didn't plan what was going to go in it. So I just started writing, and then I was like, well, I don't know where this is going. Yeah, anyway, we need to round this off. So yeah, we're going to wrap up. But that's why I'm saying I need to get this action plan written so that I know all of the things I need to do to fix this mess of a mailing list. Okay, so question of the week to the audience. What do we think? What is your biggest mistake so far? Or what is your mistake? What do you regret? What would you like to change? In your businesses. Okay, and we'll see you next week.
See you next week.
Hungry for more?
If you enjoyed this podcast, you can hear more of my angelic accent and Dan's dulcet tones on our other podcasts.
For more of me, check out the Great Writers Share podcast.
For more of me, listen to the Rebel Author podcast. We'll be back next week holding each other to account as Dan
and Sacha
become
Next Level
authors.